Who built the world's largest palace? Regia di Caserta. The largest palace in the world by volume is the Regia di Caserta, or Royal Palace of Caserta, built by the now extinct Kingdom of Naples and partially completed in 1759, a century before the dissolution and incorporation of its builder kingdom, Naples, into modern Italy in 1861. At 47,000 square meters and with a volume of 2 million cubic meters, Caserta was supposed to overawe the palaces of other kings. From within, we have the throne room, reception rooms, and grand staircases. In order to visualize the epic garden, the palace has 5 floors, 1,200 rooms, 1,742 windows, 1,000 fireplaces, a large library, and even a theatre which rivals those of Naples. There are 34 fantastic staircases. Here, the Grand Staircase of Honour, looking like something which surpasses the imagination of Piranesi. There was even supposed to be a monumental avenue running 20 kilometres between the palace and Naples itself, although this was never built. To build the palace, a village was relocated to the site to provide a workforce. The gardens too are immense. The English garden alone is 24 hectares. There are also woodlands, waterfalls and fountains, with a 38-kilometre aqueduct built to supply water, mainly for the fountains alone, the Carolina Aqueduct, and looking like something out of ancient Rome. The series of cascading fountains are 3 kilometres long in front of the palace. UNESCO, which proclaimed this a World Heritage Site, describes the palace as the swan song of the spectacular art of the Baroque, from which it adopted all the features needed to create the illusions of multidirectional space. So, how did it all come to be? Why was the biggest palace in Europe built by essentially what is now considered one of the poorer parts of Italy, the south? It's important to visualize the world not from the perspective of today, but from the viewpoint of the 18th century. The Kingdom of Naples, and known as the Kingdom of the Two Sicilies after the French Revolution, which we will feature in another video, was a deeply ancient kingdom founded in 1282 with a rich and proud heritage, looked on by the people of Europe as a place of adventure, romance, and creativity. Naples was esteemed throughout Europe because opera and Neapolitan concerto emerged here, through the likes of composers such as Domenico and Francesco Scarlatti. In the Middle Ages, Naples and Sicily had also been renowned as among the richest kingdoms in Europe. It could be argued that the South long had a reputation also for being ungovernable, and so there was something of a need for a statement building to echo and hopefully imitate the rule of Louis XIV in France. France was long the most populous nation in Europe, and as such, members of the ruling Bourbon family, through intermarriage and alliance, found themselves in possession of various European kingdoms. One branch of the Bourbons ruled the Kingdom of Naples from 1735 until 1860 for over a century, almost mirroring their rise and fall in France at Versailles. When the Bourbons, a French family ultimately emerging from medieval Capetian France, arrived in the Kingdom of Naples, they required a new royal infrastructure, quickly building and refurbishing the Royal Palace of Naples, but ultimately desiring a regional seat away from the hustle and bustle of the city, a new capital of their domain. Naples had a talented architect and engineer, Luigi Vanvitelli, and the current appearance of the royal palace at Naples, although an earlier building, which he completed in 1753, is a feeling of grandeur but also stability, almost monotony with two alternating styles of window. There is a terribly grand staircase, almost fantastic in style, as if the architects had literally been ordered to design something which surpasses the imagination. And I think we can say such grand staircase statements of architecture are definitely an Italian specialty. This style would continue in the grander Regia di Caserta. Following the great success and reputation of the rule of the Sun King Louis XIV, esteemed throughout Europe, and who centralised all authority in France at his new palace and city of Versailles, it is no surprise that hundreds, thousands of imitators should emerge. A king's palace, after Louis, should be a statement of the king's absolute authority, not only over man, but nature, with sweeping gardens as far as the eye can see, along a central axis towards a distant point. And this is still a feature of French and some continental gardens, something to view from the upstairs windows where the nobles spent most of their time while indoors, the servants living below. This view of the Palace of Portici, also built by the Bourbons near Naples and on the slopes of Vesuvius, again exemplifies a taming of nature and a mixing of ancient and modern. The design of Regia di Caserta, with its 1,200 rooms, was overseen by the architect and engineer Vanvitelli, as previously mentioned, and when King Charles, who ordered the castle built, was shown scale models, he is said to have burst into tears. Now, in 1759, Di Caserta became the official home of the court, even though construction was not yet completed. Vanvitelli died in 1771, still working on the palace, and his son took over the building work, but never completing what had originally been planned because it was too much. The appearance, ultimately with its line of identical 18th century windows, is, let's face it, a bit of monotony, but that saves money as well. The real reason for its current appearance is that the palace is unfinished. It was going to have huge wings at the front like St. Peter's, but in the end that was too much. Nor would King Charles, the project's initiator, ever live here or step inside. Charles VII of Naples, you see, became King Charles III of Spain in 1759, leaving the throne to his young son Ferdinand IV. The Bourbons continued in Italy, like a Versailles, transplanted and magnified at Caserta. But their rule only endured for a century more, during which time Caserta certainly fulfilled its own purpose as a stunning residence. But absolutist ideas had become obsolete in the 19th century as new generations arose, the kingdom increasingly corrupt and becoming weaker and inept, and with internal revolutionary pressures collapsed with the 1,000-man invasion of Garibaldi in 1861. The Kingdom of Italy would replace the Kingdom of the Two Sicilies. Italian inventory officers investigating the palace didn't know what to make of all objects in the palace, and it is recorded that a bidet which they found was to them, quote unquote, a strange guitar-shaped object. Now, if you've enjoyed this video, please consider becoming a patron. The link is below. And there will be hopefully many more videos like this and on other interesting historical topics. Thank you. Well, hello everyone, and you might have been wondering where I've been for most of the year. I've been working hard every day of the year. Hopefully I can make many more videos like this, just exploring really interesting topics. Who knew about Caserta? Who knew about the Bourbon culture of southern Italy? Not many. It was certainly a revelation to me to discover this interesting palace. And there's so much history out there that we can only see glimpses of, we can only barely grasp. Anyway, I'll be putting a lot of my original research onto Patreon for patrons only, to avoid too many arguments here. And this is going to be a real history channel exploring, as always, neglected parts of history, things we don't really know about too much, and exposing them. So I hope you've enjoyed the video.